which I'm sure they use some of the sap, but I don't believe there's not a lot of that crazy flavor in the birch sap.
Okay.
But yeah, a lot of that's wintergreen.
Birch beer always tasted like root beer to me.
Yeah.
Sarsaparilla.
Yeah.
Sarsaparilla, yeah.
Similar.
So you're doing some interesting stuff then. I mean, what other local source stuff are you working with that is, I guess kind of germane to your area?
Sure. So one of the things that we did this year is we teamed up with a local forager, and she has been doing just marvelous things for us. So every week she goes out and literally goes in the wild and harvests all of these edibles and wild-grown items.
God.
They can range from sweet gale, which is known as New England Bay. We have spice bush, which tastes like black pepper. We have sumac. Everyone knows
I know
sumac.
No, regular sumac
But
makes
there's
awesome
also-
stuff.
That's right. So it's crimson sumac. It's
Yeah.
a staghorn sumac, which has a big historical significance to Revolutionary War and Civil War soldiers, where they would boil these sumac buds or cones, and they would drink that as a tea, and it tastes like pink lemonade.
It does, yeah.
Yeah, it does.
It actually is hot, and it's high in vitamin C, believe it or not. So we make mead out of that. We have sumac, crimson sumac mead.
Nice.
Oh, cool.
We have wild cherries, wild grapes. We've got yarrow, sweet ale, and mugwort. We've got just a crazy amount of these things coming in. We've even got dogwood berries, which are not the same as the poisonous style dogwood. It's actually Japanese dogwood or kusa, and it's almost like a peach kind of flavor. It's really interesting. These are all things that we're just kind of experimenting with and playing around with, but we're fortunate enough to have this forager on our side, so every weekend she comes in, we'll be packed in our tasting room. All of a sudden this girl comes in with baskets of crazy stuff, and people just like dive all over her and
that is awesome.
Chat about what she did. Yeah, it's crazy. She was just featured on a television show called New Hampshire Chronicle, and she's really becoming quite the name for what she's doing, and she's a huge asset to what we're doing because it just feeds into that whole locally sourced. It doesn't get any more local than literally picked out of your backyard. And
yeah,
one of the meads we just recently made is she brought in black birch logs and just used my hatchet, chipped off a bunch of black birch chips. We smoked we did a little 5-gallon batch. We smoked 19 pounds of honey with black birch. We then added that into a must, put it in a carboy, pulled a vacuum on it, and smoked more black birch, and essentially used the carboy must as a bomb and pulled through the birch smoke
my God.
into it. Yeah, it's crazy. And it's actually fermenting now, which I wasn't sure it was going to for fear of carbon monoxide or whatever might be in there that the yeast won't thrive in, but we were able to get that thing ripping, and it's almost done. It's got an amazing flavor. It tastes like, it tastes like sitting around a campfire, but it's not like that over smoke.
Nice.
Kind of like, it doesn't have that like what your t-shirt smells like the next day after a bonfire. It's really a nice smoke to it. So
nice.
Yeah,
I
we're
like
always
that.
just playing around. Yeah.
Well, that's yeah. I mean, who was it I was talking to was one of the meaderies in Michigan, and Cellarman's, and they were smoking honey. They were smoking some of the fruit and things that were going into their must, before it went into fermentation. And I thought that was stunning. I got they'd smoked when I was there. They had just finished smoking a bunch of cherries. I was like, smoked cherries? What an idea!
Aww.
Yeah, I know. Oh, they were so good.
It's cool. Yeah, we're smoking plums, wild plums.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I think AJ's having mead ecstasies going on for AJ right now.
Yeah, totally. Mead raptures over here.
Yeah.
So many ideas.
Yeah, if we can think of it, we'll do it. I mean, we really try to think outside the box and really just have fun with it. You know, it's really a passion and it's a love that we all enjoy. So Matt and I started this business. We now have 2 full-timers and a part-timer that works for us, and my production assistant's really getting into it now, and he's really getting into starting to make his own batches of mead, and I'm just kind of over the shoulder helping him out, and it's really great to build this thing. Everybody does love what we're doing, and it's just, it doesn't feel like we go to work every day. It's really, we're very blessed in that regard. It's a lot of fun.
So, for these really interesting things that your forager comes in with, do you have regulation problems with getting that into production? Or can you just do stuff? I know the states live free or die, but how free are they with that?
No, it's live free or die.
You always have to. You want to always check against GRAS or GRAS, generally regulated as safe, with the FDA on most of those things. And for the most part, most of them are safe. A lot of these ingredients that we're using are used in the beer industry and gruits. We're certainly not pioneering or inventing the wheel here. We're just shining up the rims, and it's really just you want to check. I mean, we have a lot of meads in formulation right now with TTB, and there's been some kickback on a few. They want lab analysis, so we'll have to send them samples, and it does take a little bit longer to get some of these through, but a lot of them they can just go through. I mean, cherries are cherries, plums are plums, and but there are some that do stick out to them that say, hey, you can't have too much mugwort that's high in thujone, and but mugwort is used in some absinthe, and thujone's a part of those, and I mean there's a lot of kind of convincing of the TTB agent that's looking at the formulation and saying, I can reference this and show them where it's either being used or approved or what have you, and they've been pretty receptive to that. But again, it depends on the TTB agent you get and how happy they are that day.
Okay, do you have to get all these things approved before you start brewing, or can you sort of start and then catch up with the paperwork?
Well, I mean, technically you're supposed to have formulation for everything that you are making. That's not to say we don't have experiments going all the time. With the TTB, you also can get, if you can get it through formulas, there are some things like that are such small batch where, you want the label to look a certain way. You can get COLA's exemption and not have to put it through COLA's as long as you don't sell it outside the state. So, I mean, we do follow the formulation rules and regulations, but I mean, there's certainly some brewing going on in the background that we're making that aren't necessarily formulations that are approved, but we know that the ingredients are approved to be made into mead.
So that's the kind of thing you could serve in a tasting room?
Sure.
You just can't necessarily sell it at that point?
Sure.
Yeah.
You have to be cagey, because you never know when the TTB is listening.
I'm sure their patrons on Got Mead.
Yeah. They've been watching Got Mead for 20 years.
You guys wouldn't have. I think if they were, you probably wouldn't have quite so much trouble getting through to them sometimes.
I know, that's right.
So I don't think they are actually patrons. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so silly sometimes.
Yeah, well,
they would have to pay up if they were patrons.
Yeah, well, even TTB agents can afford $30 a year, so.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's great.
I mean, they don't get paid great, but enough for that. I mean, come on, that's a month of Starbucks for most people, if that. So, what sorts of new and fascinating things are you coming up with based on what you're able to forage around your area? Because it sounds like a lot of what you're doing is sort of following that path of, look, we found mugwort. Look, there's a huge stand of sumac, like that.
Yeah, it's so we're putting those out. We're also doing blends. The mugwort, sweet ale, and yarrow is a real popular blend that I've really enjoyed, and so we are putting that one out. The most recent one we did was our elderberry maple. Again, all locally sourced elderberries, maple syrup, and honey. We have a honeyberry that's out now. That's a lot of people have never had a honeyberry, but it's an actual fruit. It's in the honeysuckle. It's a cousin of the honeysuckle, and it looks like an elongated blueberry, and it tastes like a blueberry, a raspberry, and a cranberry. And it's just an amazing flavor. So we put that out. Those are locally grown here. We've done the traditional raspberries. We've got the plums that are wild. We bought those not long ago at a farmer's market, and we are planning on smoking those. We've got the birch coming out soon. We've got the smoked mead coming out soon. That'll be a couple months down the road, but in the mead making world, soon is like 6 months.
Yeah. I noticed you said that you do a 6-month turnaround. That's not the case for a lot of meaderies. They're doing other methods where they're, bringing it to market from pitch to bottle in, a month or two. So why 6 months? What was tell us what you can, obviously. What was the methodology there and the thought process? Sure.
Well, I mean, there's certainly a lot of meaderies putting out mead in 1 to 2 months. A lot of times you don't. I've seen a lot of carbonated meads that with people that are like, oh, this is how I do it, 1 to 2 months, and I've seen carbonated meads coming, and of course none of that makes social media, but it happens, and it does happen at 6 months. It happens at a year. I've seen kind of running the gamut there, but 6 months, I think you get a solid mead. You have a better case of not having that re-fermentation in a bottle. We don't do any strict filtration. A lot of these places are doing, your crossflows or your absolutes, and we don't do any of that. We really just do this kind of tried and true method of making mead, and we've built it on a 6-month turnaround. It's an expensive way to do it, but it ensures consistency across all of our brands. It softens the edges. I mean, no matter I can make a mead in 2 months and it tastes delicious. It's not hard to do when you understand the concept and the physics behind it. But there's nothing that can substitute age. Otherwise, the wine industry would have done that long ago. And that age is. We all think honey is the number one ingredient, but in my personal opinion, time is our number one ingredient, and it is really one of the most expensive. So, and it's one you can't make back. So, it's in our belief system, going with that 6-month tried and true method, it just works for us, and it follows and fits into our business plan and the quality products we put out.
Okay, so. Is it fermenting for 6 months, or are you doing a usual 30-day ferment and then aging for 5?
Exactly.
Okay.
The latter. So our fermentation is only 2 to 3 weeks, sometimes 4, depending on the yeast strain and the flavor profile that I'm going for. From that point on, it's aging.
Which leads us right into Manny's yeast questions, if Manny's back. So that's interesting though. I mean, because there's the full gamut across the meaderies in the country, but many of them are doing the faster turnaround and producing some pretty nice meads. But you're like you say, you're kind of going more old fashioned and going with that more age. And I've had some of your meads; it's working. You've had some.
Thank you very much.
The ones that I have tried have been excellent. And I was there to hear Ash Fishbein, Sap House Meadery, first place. A whole bunch of categories. Over several years of the Mazer Cup. So, it's definitely working. Now, do you have meads that you're holding back and really sitting on, like years of aging, or are they all pretty much 6-month turnaround?
No, we have, so our signature flavors are really the ones that